Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome to another ship fitting guide for EVE Echoes. In today's video we're going to be continuing our look at the various Tech VII and Tech VIII mid-game battle cruisers, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Gallente Federation's Brutix. This is actually quite a popular battle cruiser, and we're going to be taking a look at what makes this different to its contemporary, the Caldari State Ferox, and having a look at how to fit this and how high you can take it in the game. As a spoiler alert, all the way up to Tech level 10. Now, just as a brief little aside before we get started, I'm sure you've noticed by now there's a few new additions on screen. I recently managed to get myself an Elgato capture card, so I am still sitting here with my Asus ROG phone, doing all the fun stuff here whilst I record. Let me know what you think of the new setup in the comments section down below. Now, if you enjoy this video, please let me know by hitting like on it, subscribe to the channel for all things EVE Echoes, and make sure that you ding that notification bell to be alerted when a new video goes live. Of course, as well, if you do want to go the extra mile to help support this channel, you can do so by heading to the Patreon link down below as well, and pledge to support there. It's a great way to earn some exclusive merchandise, and to get your name in the stars at the end of the video. Anyway, that all said and done then, let's jump right in to talking about the Gallente Federation's Brutix. I personally consider the Brutix to be the Gallente Federation equivalent of the Minmatar Republic Hurricane and the Amarr Empire's Harbinger, but if we jump into the Gallente Federation ship tree and actually have a look, you'll see that there is a slight discrepancy with that. At Tech level 7, there is no Brutix prototype, whereas there is a Hurricane and Harbinger prototype at Tech level 7. Beyond that though, it does follow the same progression. At Tech level 8, where we have the Harbinger and the Hurricane, we have the Brutix. At Tech level 9, where we see the Hurricane and Harbinger logistics, we have the Brutix logistics. And at Tech level 10, whereas we have the Hurricane and the Harbinger Guardian, we have the Brutix Guardian here too. So other than the disappointing lack of a Tech 7 prototype, the Brutix is pretty much following that same pattern as the Harbinger and the Hurricane. Let's actually have a look at this particular ship though, not the Brutix Guardian, sorry, the actual Brutix itself. Now, one of the other advantages of me using a capture card here is that I should have gotten rid of the flickering, so we can actually have a look at the ship now without it hurting your eyes, and what a brilliant ship to be looking at. I love the look of the Brutix. Okay, admittedly the chin is a bit much for me, it's a meme-worthy ship just for that chin, but some of its nanocores actually look really cool, and I would especially draw your attention to the Tiger skin, which is available in the standard store. I think it's available actually just for the Scholar Points as well, which makes it excellent and really easy to get to, and it just looks amazing. I mean, look at that. I actually really like the look of the Brutix, other than that chin, but the Tiger skin there just makes it even more awesome. Anyway, let's have a look at how this flies rather than just how it looks. So under the attributes and fittings, first of all, that fitting profile. It does have one drone tube that can launch small or medium drones. Ultimately, don't stress this too much. I mean, the Brutix probably as a brawler will be in drone range, and if you're a Gallente pilot, well, you might have medium drone skills, but ultimately this is just going to be maybe 30-40 additional DPS. It's not really worth stressing about too much. What gives the Brutix its power is its 7 high slots, which is going to be fitted with medium railguns, as we'll see in a moment. 3 mid slots gives us a decent amount of versatility in regards to electronic warfare and capacitor warfare, and 5 low slots again means we get a good amount of tanking capabilities, or we can go into things like weapon upgrades, capacitor batteries, and propulsion modules as well. Finally, being a Tech VIII ship, of course, we have 3 of each of the combat and engineering rigs. Its power grid of 1067 megawatts is also pretty solid. This is a little bit larger than perhaps it needs to be, but this does help us out with oversizing some modules, as we'll see later. We have a cargo hold capacity of 950 cubic meters, kind of what you'd expect at this size of ship, and a very solid defense of 29,626. Now, the vast majority of this is, of course, in the structure, 8,708, it's a Gallente ship, followed very closely by the armor, 8,538. This is going to be an armor tank ship, but being a Gallente ship as well, it's got a good amount of structure in case your armor tank fails just that little bit. Then we have a shield of 7,078. It is a Gallente ship. That shield is very small. It's going to disappear very, very quickly in combat. We don't really worry about it. It's just padding to get a few ships blown up before we have to activate our armor tanking modules. The capacitor bank as well is actually surprisingly strong on this ship. 3,150 gigajoules with a max capacitor charge rate of 14.42 is really solid. This actually gives the Gallente Brutix quite a lot of stability, which we'll see later, again, works really well in its favour as an armor tanking brawler. Under max lock target 6, again, that's standard. Signature radius of 236.5, that's a little bit larger than some of the others, which does mean it's a bigger target, and you are going to be right in the thick of things, so do expect to take damage. People will be able to lock onto you fairly quickly. Scan resolution of 222 on the flip side is okay. It's not fantastic, but it's not bad either. That is very middling. You're going to take a bit of time to lock onto smaller targets, but big targets you'll lock onto fairly quickly. Then finally, going down to the flight velocity, the mass, and the inertia, this tells the story of actually a surprisingly nimble and agile battlecruiser. I know the Brutix doesn't look like it, and with a name like Brutix, it doesn't sound like it would be nimble. It sounds like it'd be slow, ponderous, and heavy. But no, it does actually have a fairly good agility rating, and a flight velocity of 182 meters per second does actually make it fairly, nimble and movable as well. It's got a decent speed to it. The warp speed of 2.7 astronomical units per second, however, that's standard. I think every battlecruiser at this tech level has that 2.7. Looking at the trait descriptions though, this being a mainline battlecruiser has the standard roll bonus of a 25% increase to the optimal range and accuracy fall-off of the relevant medium weapon, in this case, railguns. It's a Galente ship that's not a drone ship, therefore it's going to be railguns. Of course, it does actually say medium railguns as well, just to, be clear. Also, we can fit command bursts. Now, I'm still in two minds about command bursts. My fit here will not be using them simply because I don't have relevant skills for them. They are very expensive skills, and I'm not entirely convinced that they're necessarily worth the skill point investment unless you are flying a command ship or explicitly using command bursts in fleets. For personal skills, I'm not personally sold on it yet, but we'll see. Then if we look at the relevant skills for the Brutix itself, we have Advanced Medium Railgun Upgrade. Again, like most of the battlecruisers at this tech level, the game is assuming that you've been training cruisers of a medium weapon that is similar. So with the Brutix, you'll have been using, I don't know, something like the Thorax. You've been training Medium Railgun Operation and Medium Railgun Upgrade. By the time you have Medium Railgun Upgrade 5, you're going to have an additional 6% per level damage for your Medium Railgun damage. So that's an additional 30% damage and an additional 25% medium railgun tracking speed from plus 5% per level. This clearly suggests that we should be looking at a brawling fit using snub-nosed railguns because that tracking speed works really well with the snub-nosed. It scales up beautifully with them and means that they're going to be able to track anything that gets really close, and the additional damage there, 30% additional damage on those, is absolutely monstrous. You're taking those 7 high slots and basically making them almost 10 high slots worth of damage. It's a lot of power to kick out. And if you weren't sold on the concept of this being a brawler, the fact that Battlecruiser Command gives it an additional 7.5% armor repair, so every time an armor repairer cycles, it repairs an additional 37.5% armor, more than it normally would do, assuming you've got Battlecruiser Command at 5, which you should do, then this is clearly an active armor tank ship. It is going to be able to take a lot of beating and just keep those cycles going and keep it repairing. So let's have a look at fitting this then. Now, being a brawling fit, of course we're going to be using snub-nosed railguns and building around survivability. Now, this is going to be a fairly controversial fit in regards to the nanocore and the mid-slots. We will talk about that as we reach them, and as usual, if you want to try this fit out using your skills, I've included a QR code on screen that will allow you to download that into the Sweet Fitting app, available on iOS, Android, and on Windows, Mac, and Linux. Download that free in the description. You can then use that QR code to try this fit out. Now, basically, what we're going for here, as I said, is a brawling build, so our high slots are going to be C-type medium snub-nosed railguns. Obviously, if you're just hitting tech level 8 and you want to try fitting this using your lower level skills, use the fitting tool to see how this works. You may have to downsize some of the modules in regards to their tech level, their meta level. So rather than C-types, you might need to go down to something like Federation Navy, so on and so forth. Try it out in the fitting app and see how this works. This is, of course, based on me having full tech level 10 battlecruiser skills, 554 in everything relevant. So that's 554 in all of the battlecruiser skills, 554 in cruiser engineering, because that does reduce the amount of power grid that the high slots use, and of course all of the other skills that would be relevant to flying a ship of this type anyway. Now, the C-type medium snub-nosed railguns, they do have a very short range. Optimal range is a pitiful 5.63 kilometers with an accuracy fall-off of 8.1. That's not atrocious. It's something you really have to bear in mind. Fortunately, as I mentioned, the Brutix is actually surprisingly quick and nimble, so it can maintain those ranges against enemy threats. That said, if you're going up against someone who is kiting, for example, if you're trying to solo some of the angel anomalies, the special anomalies like scouts and inquisitors that do have mobs that, seem to use micro warp drives and just sit at 70 kilometers range, you will have a bad time against those, so just be aware of that. Now, the controversial mid-slot issue, let's jump straight to that. I've managed to cram in a Vrikalarkus large energy Nosferatu. This is the meta level 8 equivalent of a large energy Nosferatu. It fits in this ship's power grid without much working. I've got one ancillary power grid router in here just to prop this up. If you've got lower skills, you might find that needs to be an ancillary power grid router 2 or even 3. Again, just use the Suite fitting app to see what you'll actually need in order to achieve that. Now, I've gone for 2 stasis webifiers here. This is ultimately the contentious point. I want to be able to web something to slow it down so that I can hit it with a snub-nosed comfortably, and a lot of people watching this are going to be saying, but hang on a second, Benzie, there are the the Serpentis NCO cores, the Serpentis Veteran cores, that actually improve the strength of stasis webifiers, and mean you don't actually need to go for this. Well, yes, that's technically true, but those are also very expensive nano cores. They're not readily available in the Concord Pass, so this fit is not relying on the NCO cores. If you have the NCO cores, you can the Serpentis cores, you can go for the web strength bonus on those, and therefore you can just get away with 1 webifier, at which point you might decide that you'd rather have 2 medium Nosferatus rather than 1 large, or you put something else in the mid slot here, like, I don't know, a warp scrambler or something. It's entirely up to you what you'd replace that second stasis webifier with if you do decide to go for the Serpentis cores. Now, the other side of that, though, is that by not going for the Serpentis core and just having 2 webs, whichever nano core you fit, you can just go for railgun damage. And if I open up the nano core menu here, which always takes a few seconds to load, you can see I've gone for the standard Brutix Galente Veteran core, very easy to achieve and to get, 14.4% railgun damage. That is pitiful compared to most of the readily available nanocores, just to show that if you wanted to use something like an Ascension core or whatever you have available for the Brutix, you're going to be able to get higher damage than I've got showing here, just through the sheer dint that your nanocore gets better damage than mine does. For the low slots, I've gone for 2 C-type medium armor repairers. An interesting point about 2 C-type armor repairers at medium level: 2 medium armor repairers repairs more and for less capacitor and requiring less power grid than a single large repairer would. So 1 large repairer is worse than 2 medium armor repairers in pretty much every single way, shape or form, other than the fact that it fits in 1 slot. Ultimately, I'm going to use the 2 slots here, fit that in quite nicely. We can't fit a large in to free up a slot because we don't have enough power grid, courtesy of that large Nosferatu. This means if you did go down to 1 web using the Serpentis web core, if you went down to 1 web and went for 2 Nosferatus, you might have enough power grid to actually cram in a large armor repairer, at which point the slot you have freed up can be something like a magnetic field stabilizer for additional damage. But I'm going for a nice easy fit that doesn't require specific cores and bonuses like that. Beyond this, then I have 2 adaptive armor hardeners, get those resistances up so we take less damage, finally finishing off with a C-type medium afterburner. Again, propulsion modifier is absolutely vital in this scenario because we need to be able to maintain that very short optimal range and very aggressive accuracy fall-off of the snub-nosed railgun, so you are going to want to have a high-quality prop mod here, and you might be thinking, hang on Benzie, why not a micro warp drive? And yeah, theoretically you could. Obviously, a micro warp drive is going to negatively affect your capacitor because it cuts off the top 25% of your capacitor just for having it fit. That was the problem I had here. The medium afterburner does enough of what I want it to do. It allows me to close the gap quickly enough and to maintain range well enough, and it allows me to remain capacitor stable. This is a key point for me, that I am comfortably capacitor stable whilst running every single module you see here. Both armor repairers, the afterburner, and the 2 armor hardeners can all be run whilst I'm firing railguns at everything and anything that comes into range. If I had swapped that to a micro warp drive, it does not achieve capacitor stability. You do have to cycle the micro warp drive on and off very carefully, and even then, you do have concerns when it comes to anything with a Nosferatu or a neutralizer hitting you. That can be a worrying situation. For the rigs, I've gone for a standard DPS setup of a collision accelerator and a burst aerator, followed by an anti-explosive pump 3. This is the 40% increase to my explosive resistance on armor. Again, that is just about making sure that I reduce the amount of damage I take, because I'm going to be demonstrating this in Angel Space. If you are not in Angel Space, you might find that the auxiliary nano pump, or whatever it is that gives you the additional reps per cycle, is an even better option here. I haven't honestly run the numbers, it's just sort of a knee-jerk that when something is in Angel Space and armor tanking, I want to get that armor, the explosive resist on the armor, right up. Otherwise though, give it a try with the additional armor repair and see how that works. For the engineering rigs, we've already talked about the ancillary power grid router. If you've got lower skills than I have, you may need to change that to a power grid router 2 or even a 3. Then for the other two, I've gone for a capacitor control circuit and a semiconductor memory cell 3. Now, you don't actually need both of these to maintain capacitor stability. It just makes it a bit healthier, a bit more stable. Therefore, if you really want to do this fit and your skills aren't quite up to scratch, you can replace one of these for an additional ancillary power grid router if you absolutely have to. That large Nosferatu really does make up for the lack of the capacitor rigs if you really feel the need to go with that. And what this gets us ultimately is a cold DPS of 1196.33 that this ship can comfortably maintain. We can sit in optimal range with that and actually apply that damage to the target. We have a solid cold defense of 49,791. We are capacitor stable. Our targeting is pretty good at 289mm, thanks to the stuff I've got going on. And our cold navigation speed is 263.9. This can be an absolute brute of a ship, so let's showcase this in action. If you've been following this little series of me looking at the Tech VII, Tech VIII Battlecruisers, you'll know that I'm showcasing all of these in an Angel 10 small anomaly, just to give you an idea side by side of what the comparisons look like. So here we are with the Brutix in an Angel 10 small anomaly using the fit that we've just showcased. Now here you can see I'm coming to the end of wave 3. At the end of wave 3, I'm sitting at 100% armor. My shield is obviously shot to hell. It's a Galente ship, that is standard. We've got no shield whatsoever, we're at 100% armor, I've taken no damage into my structure, and we're sitting at a comfortable 70% capacitor. Beautiful explosion to kick things off. Into wave 4, we're just going to lock onto everything. I've got kind of the auto orbit set up here, but I'm going to do it manually, you'll see anyway. Once we lock onto the ships, we literally drop that Nosferatu onto the biggest target. The last thing that we're going to destroy is going to have that Nosferatu on it. We're pretty much going to be in optimal range at all times, as long as that Nosferatu is running. I think it's, 24 kilometers, and our guns are shorter range than that, so we're going to be in that optimal. I then start to take out all the small ships one by one. With 2 webs and the tracking speed of snub-nosed railguns, you can see they make very short work of that Gisty Hound. Down it goes, and we're going to go for that Thrasher next to the Gisty Thrasher 3 Interdictor. We've locked on, the webs are in place, shields go down in one volley, and then just the railguns absolutely rip through it. It's literally 3 cycles and it's gone. Fortunately as well though, this doesn't apply to just the small ships. As we start getting up the larger ships as well, you'll see that that monstrous DPS from snub-nosed railguns does kick them down a peg. And as you can see here, we're still sitting at nearly 70% capacitor. I take a tiny bit of damage onto my armor, and then the reps just rack it right back up. Ultimately, 2 armor reps is a little bit overkill in a small an Angel 10 small. An Angel 10 medium, yeah, you just leave them running. But the point is, I can leave them running. I don't need to bother and worry about them. They're so capacitor friendly, and I've got the new the Nosferatu running. Everything here is constantly going, and I'm just not really losing much capacitor at all. It's not quite an AFK build, because obviously you need to maintain that optimal range. If you have the optimal orbit set and lockback and auto attack and all that kind of thing, yeah, you could probably like sort of semi-AFK this. I never recommend a true AFK, because you can be jumped, all kinds of crazy things can happen, you could get minor bugs in the game. Just, yeah, keep an eye on your device whilst you're doing this. But you'll see we've gone through this wave nice and quickly. The Gistum Hurricane there is going down nice and quickly too, and those snubs are just working their magic on it. and we're going to cut through. At this point, it might be worth suggesting that if you have the skills for them, and the key emphasis there is if you have the skills, you could even swap a Webifier out here for an auto salvager to just make this even more semi-AFK. You would be looting as you go. For me though, because I tend to be quite active when I'm brawling, I like watching the game, I like seeing the explosions and the stuff going on, I'm happy to have the side menu open and just manually loot. I am demonstrating this on the Fulmination Content Creator Test server, so there is no need whatsoever for me to actually be looting. It's useless to me, but you get an idea of like the ranges that I'm sitting at. I can constantly be looting everything. Now the interesting part here that I do want to showcase is that currently I'm 6 kilometers away from this Gistum Hurricane. Of course that is within sort of approximately optimal range. It's a little bit into the accuracy fall off, but not too far. But look at the Maelstrom there. That Maelstrom is currently 16 kilometers away. Ultimately, I just want to showcase how quickly we actually close the gap there. So it's 14, 13, 12, then we move to 11, 10, we're in range now, 9, 8 kilometers, 7 kilometers, and we're in optimal. It's as easy as that. This is a fairly nimble ship that is going to get into that optimal range quickly. It is going to be able to maintain it comfortably. You can see here, we're orbiting at 5 kilometers and the ship will hold that orbit no real trouble. It is a surprisingly agile battlecruiser that will handle Tech 10 content, easily do Tech 10 mediums. I think you can actually take some of the Tech 10 specials. You just need to be very, very careful. The larges tend to be the bigger problems. From what people are telling me about this stuff, I haven't dared to try the specials in this. It did fine in the mediums. Like, the mediums were not even scary. It's done tier 6 and tier 7 specials, Inquisitors and Scouts, so it can solo that kind of content as well if you have that available to you. Just a key point to note there. And this is Angel Space. This is armor tanking in Angel Space against rats that do predominantly explosive and kinetic damage. Well, okay, predominantly explosive and thermal, but they do a lot of kinetic as well. These guys are designed to rip through armor tanks, and you can see I'm sitting at 74, 73% capacitor, still 100% armor. I've actually turned one of the armor reps off at this point in time because there's no point running two. This is how brutal this ship can be, and in my opinion, it's well worth it. If you like brawling, the Brutix is absolutely the Tech 8 battleship of choice for you, in my opinion. Yes, there are alternatives that will do things just as well. The Myrmidon I showcased brawls really nicely. The Ferox, not so much. The Cyclone, yes, that does it really nicely, as does the Hurricane. But ultimately, I think the Brutix does become kind of the king of brawling. It is literally right there in the name. So yeah, if that's your jam, give this one a shout. And if you do use the Brutix, if this is a ship you enjoy flying, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I'd love to see what you guys are using as fits. I'd love to have an idea of what you guys enjoy about this ship, what it is that you like about it. I am still hoping that eventually at Tech level 10, NetEase will give us the Brutix Navy issue, which would just be the same thing, just with better stats that makes Tech 10 content even easier, but obviously at the massively inflated cost that a Tech 10 ship constitutes. I would love to see that, and I know a lot of you guys would as well. I know a lot of you folks have commented previously, like the Hurricane Fleet issue, the Harbinger Navy issue, that kind of thing. These are ships that you would love to see, and I absolutely agree. If we're going to be stuck in this awful tech system, then at Tech level 10 we need to have options for absolutely everything. Anyway, folks, I'm going to end this video here. That really showcases everything that I wanted to say about the Brutix. Let me know what you think about this ship, watch that beautiful explosion, and then let me know what you think about the new visual setup as well. Is it better? Is it worse? Are you excited for me to be live streaming at some point in the near future? Anyway, folks, thanks for watching this one right the way to the end. Thank you for your eternal support. Happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!